Have you ever noticed how certain men always seem to return, as if pulled back by an invisible thread, even after a moment that felt like a final goodbye? What if I told you that there is a silent, almost imperceptible, yet profoundly powerful attitude that draws them back? And what if it has nothing to do with tender words or what happens in bed, but with something far deeper and more transcendent? Carl Jung, one of the great pioneers of 20th century psychology, might say that the secret lies in the unseen, how you meet yourself in the quiet aftermath of intimacy. He believed there is a force within us, something unconscious that shapes our actions, our desires, and, above all, our most meaningful connections. It is in that invisible dimension where the true power of attraction resides, a power that, once awakened, is almost impossible to resist. For Jung, intimacy was never merely physical. It was a genuine encounter of unconscious minds. Every glance, every silence, every gesture carries symbols and meanings beyond what the conscious mind can grasp. When you share yourself with another, you're not just sharing space, you are opening the door to your deepest self. And that is where everything truly begins. If, after intimacy, you spiral into anxiety, into the desperate need for control, into restless insecurity, the other person will sense it. Even if they cannot name it, their unconscious feels the energy of lack and fear. But if instead you turn inward, if you embrace your emotions with compassion, listen to yourself, and hold your own worth with reverence, something extraordinary shifts. You become a mirror in which the other can glimpse what they have not yet seen in themselves. That, Jung would say, is what makes a connection unforgettable. He called this path individuation the sacred process by which a person becomes who they are truly meant to be. And that path always runs through the way you live your most intimate bonds. If you give yourself to someone only to dissolve in waiting, in clinging to messages, confirmations, constant proofs of love, then you hand away the very thing that makes you whole, your individuality, your authentic power. But when you choose silence not as punishment, not as manipulation, but as a way of returning to yourself, of listening inwardly, of truly perceiving your own feelings, you send an unspoken yet profoundly powerful message. I am whole, even without you. This touches the other's unconscious deeply, because most people have never learned how to be whole in solitude. And when they encounter someone who has cultivated that strength, they feel an inexplicable magnetic pull. You are not radiating lack, you are radiating pure presence. It is as if your silence speaks louder than 1,000 desperate words, as if your absence carries more genuine presence than countless hollow presences that crowd the world. In his profound studies on the animus and anima, the masculine and feminine aspects within each of us, Jung revealed how we unconsciously seek in others what we cannot yet find within ourselves. A man, for instance, often projects his anima, the sensitive, intuitive, emotional side of himself, onto a woman. Conditioned from childhood to repress those qualities, he does not know how to meet them directly within himself. So when you stand before him, whole, centered, self-aware, not leaning on his validation to confirm your worth, you stir something he cannot name. Without realizing why, he feels compelled to return. Because beside you, he's given access to a part of himself long forgotten, a dimension of his being he cannot reach alone. It is as though your presence awakens in him a reunion with what has been sleeping within, and that awakening creates an emotional memory deep, indelible, unforgettable. It is not your body that calls him back, but the elevated state of being he touches in your presence. And that state arises directly from how you hold yourself in the quiet space after intimacy. Now consider this. When the man steps away after closeness and finds on the other side a woman who does not chase, who does not demand explanations, who does not hunger for instant answers, but who also does not close her heart, something extraordinary begins to unfold within him. He feels an emptiness, a silence, but not a cold or cutting silence. It is a silence full of presence, charged with dignity, what Jung called the shadow. The shadow is everything we deny within ourselves. And when he begins to feel nostalgia, insecurity, or regret, he is confronting that shadow face to face. Your absence, an absence that is not the loss of you, but the full radiance of who you truly are, becomes an unyielding mirror. He begins to wonder, why do I feel this longing? What was so rare, so unforgettable about her? And then he returns. Not because you asked, not because he insisted, but because something deep within him was stirred, something essential. And that something awakens only when you choose this path, to return to yourself with love and respect. Jung often said that every deep relationship carries within it the seed of healing, and that only what is faced with courage can truly be transformed. When you face your solitude, your waiting, your natural waves of anxiety, and instead of fleeing, you embrace them with compassion, you expand, you grow into someone who needs no one in order to feel whole. And it is precisely this integrity that draws men back, not from dependency, not from fear of loss, but from a genuine desire to be near what is real. Because deep down, every soul is searching for what is real, and nothing is more real than a person who remains faithful to themselves. So if you wish to know what to do after intimacy, the answer is at once simple and profound. Return to yourself. Care for your body with tenderness, your heart with patience, your soul with reverence. Practice conscious silence. Observe without judgment. Feel without resistance. For within that sacred movement, inward lies your true feminine power. And it is this authentic power that calls him back. Not because you pulled at him with strategies or manipulation, but because he never truly wished to leave. His soul recognizes the home it touched in your steady presence. Most men cannot fully name what they feel in those moments. They were raised to silence their tears, to carry strength like a shield, to hide every trace of vulnerability. The result? Generations of adults running from their own emotions as though from dangerous enemies. Jung wrote often of this flight from the inner world. He reminded us that what we reject within ourselves does not vanish. It does not dissolve. It slips beneath the surface. And there, in the depths of the unconscious, it waits, the silence of a woman who does not beg, who does not chase in desperation, who does not diminish herself yet, who also does not close her heart, becomes a mirror that compels him to confront everything he has spent a lifetime avoiding or suppressing. And this is why many men return, not in the end because of the body, but because of the soul. For in the presence of a centered woman, he feels something the rest of the world cannot give him: inner peace, authenticity. And make no mistake, this is not manipulation. Jung never spoke of tricks to control others. On the contrary, he believed that true transformation arises only when one confronts oneself with unflinching honesty. So when we speak of what makes a man come back, we are not speaking of emotional games or shallow psychological tactics. We are speaking of an inner stance, a conscious choice rooted in dignity. When you refuse to lose yourself after intimacy, when you decide not to abandon yourself, you communicate a message more powerful than words. I belong fully to myself. And the most extraordinary part is this: by standing in your own wholeness, you awaken in him the desire to stand in his. Because deep down, we are all weary of relationships that drain us, that leave us hollow and exhausted. What we long for is someone who helps us remember who we truly are, someone who, even in silence, speaks, I see you, I respect you, I value you. Such a connection is rare, almost sacred. Jung taught that relationships are projection fields, screens onto which we cast our idealizations, our unresolved wounds, our hopes, and our most primal fears. And in moments of intimacy, those projections do not fade. They intensify, surging to the surface with raw clarity. It is as if, for a few sacred moments, all veils fall away, and the unconscious rises fully to the surface. That is why what follows afterward matters so profoundly. It is a space where everything is revealed, stripped of masks. If you react with desperation, chasing after answers, demanding instant responses, frantically searching for confirmation, he will feel it immediately. He doesn't need words. He senses it viscerally as pure need. But When he encounters you as whole, complete, anchored in your essence, that image imprints itself deeply. That is what endures. Even when your body is absent, the memory of your centered presence remains. Now imagine a real scenario. After a deep, intimate encounter, he vanishes. No call, no message, no sign. What then? Most people rush into obsession, dissecting every moment, replaying each glance and word, asking endlessly what went wrong. But what if the true path of healing is the opposite? What if, instead of chasing in anxiety, you embraced yourself in love? What if, instead of searching outside for answers, you turned inward toward your own sacred self? Jung spoke often of integrating the shadow of embracing what hurts, rather than denying or violently rejecting it. To do this consciously is to create an energetic field of rare maturity, a presence that is profoundly attractive. Because, at his core, every mature man longs for a woman who is a safe harbor, not a hiding place from life, but a place where he can meet himself. To embody that harbor of peace, you must be firmly anchored in yourself, rooted in your own essence. That posture is revolutionary, especially for men in their 50s or 60s whose lives have been marked by decades of relationships defined by demand, exhaustion, and fear. When such a man meets a woman who does not chase him desperately, yet also does not close her heart, he experiences something entirely new. A quiet respect, a presence that welcomes without binding, a love that does not abandon itself. Jung believed that this kind of feminine energy could transform the masculine soul. He saw a conscious relationship as a vessel for profound healing, but only when both souls are willing to meet themselves honestly and grow together. So when you gather yourself with unconditional love, when you tend to your inner life, honor your sacred rituals, and embrace conscious silence, you extend a subtle yet powerful invitation. An invitation to grow, to mature emotionally, to reconnect with what is truly essential in life, and that invitation, even without words, resonates within him. And one day, when he is ready to receive it, he returns. Not because you demanded it, not because you persuaded him, but because you became someone unforgettable. For what most men fear more than abandonment is vulnerability. Jung once said that the greatest of all human fears is a fear of truly knowing oneself, because self-knowledge requires extraordinary courage. So when you appear in someone's life with the courage to face yourself, to love yourself unconditionally, to honor yourself even after the deepest intimacy, you become a living mirror of that inner strength. And such authentic strength is magnetic in ways that transcend the physical. That is why I emphasize again, this is not about conquest. It is not about persuasion or seduction. It is about being who you truly are, with lightness and with truth. Becoming a sacred space where another soul can find rest, yet also feel challenged to grow. This, Jung would say, is the true alchemy of love, transforming intimacy into deep self-knowledge. And this alchemy unfolds only when, after closeness, you consciously choose to return to yourself. For in that simple yet powerful gesture lies the ancient secret of why men return sooner or later. Because what many men do not realize, or have never paused to truly reflect upon, is this: to come back after real intimacy is not merely a choice of the mind. It is an inner need, something deeper than the ego, stronger than pride. Jung once said, the human psyche is constantly seeking balance and harmony. When a man encounters something that shakes him free from the superficial and brings him face to face with what is truly real, that experience leaves a permanent imprint upon his unconscious. Even if he tries to move on, to forget, to distract himself with others or with the routines of daily life, the imprint does not fade easily because it was never just a casual encounter. It was, in truth, a meeting with his own soul through the conscious presence of another. And that is why he so often returns, sometimes in weeks, sometimes in months, but inevitably. His unconscious instinctively recognizes where truth once existed, and truth has its own magnetic power to call back what was only temporarily lost. But here lies a delicate and essential point. That return can only happen if you do not interfere with the natural process. Jung taught that true growth requires sacred time, contemplative silence, and yes, even transformative pain. He must feel that aching nostalgia within his own soul in order to recognize fully the value of what you shared. If you rush this process, if you demand explanations, send desperate messages, or try to convince him with arguments, you interrupt his inner evolution. You hand him answers before he has even asked the right questions of himself. And in doing so, you weaken the transformative power of what was experienced. On the other hand, when you remain silent with unshakable dignity, when you honor his space without abandoning yourself, you create the perfect ground for a conscious return. More importantly, you safeguard your own energy. You heal at the deepest level. You grow spiritually. Because you are not waiting for his return to complete you. You are already whole in your own essence. And it is precisely that state of completeness that makes any reunion, should it come, even more powerful and meaningful. Yes, this is difficult. Our culture trains us to chase answers, to fix everything in urgency, to flee from emptiness at all costs. Yet Jung understood that it is within that silence, that waiting, that sacred emptiness, where the greatest transformations are born. Jung reminds us wisely that the void is not a curse, but an essential part of transformation. It is in the void that the seed of consciousness first begins to sprout. It is in deep silence that the soul hears what the ceaseless noise of the world will never allow us to perceive. So after intimacy, resist the urge to panic. Instead, use that sacred space of time to care for yourself fully. Do what nourishes you from within. Read a book that expands your awareness. Walk slowly through nature. Sip your coffee in contemplative stillness while gazing at the infinite sky. Reconnect with soul friends. Awaken the dreams that once slept within you. For while you are tending to yourself, something invisible yet real is also happening within him. An inner movement, unseen, unspoken, is quietly preparing the way back. Time, contrary to what we have been taught, is not the enemy. Time is the fertile soil in which consciousness grows and ripens. And when he does return, if he returns, he will not be the same. He may come back more present, more aware, perhaps finally ready to meet you without masks, without defenses. Yet, it is vital to remember, with humility, that not all men return, and that, too, is perfectly right. Because the most important part of this process is not whether he comes back, it is who you become in the waiting. Jung teaches us that every relationship is a mirror, and if that mirror breaks, the wisest act is not to mourn the shards, but to study them with curiosity, to learn from the fragments of reflection that remain. Ask yourself, what did this relationship reveal about me? Which parts of my being did it illuminate? Which old wounds surfaced, demanding to be healed? Which shadows rose into the light, ready to be integrated? All of this is sacred material, seeds of self-knowledge, treasures that no external circumstance can ever take from you. Even if he never returns in the physical sense, you have already gained something of immeasurable value. You have gained yourself. You have seen yourself clearly, embrace yourself with compassion, and move forward with deeper strengths and wisdom. This new version of you, more conscious, more whole, more emotionally mature, will naturally attract those who stand at the same level of evolution. Because true, lasting love cannot be built with someone who is still desperately running away from himself. If he is not yet ready for such depth, allow life to prepare him at his own pace. You do not need to lose yourself trying to teach someone how to see you or how to value you. It is enough to live authentically, to remain true to who you are, and to walk your path with trust. Carl Jung believed deeply that kindred souls recognize one another, that when two people are truly ready for conscious love, the meeting happens almost magically. But that magic never comes from desperation, from restless anxiety, or from urgent grasping. It arises from truth. And truth lives quietly, in the serenity of one who no longer needs to prove anything to anyone. So after intimacy, if you want to do something truly transformational, return gently to yourself. Care for what you feel without judgment. Honor your openness without regret, and trust. Trust what was awakened in that connection. because if it was real, he will feel it in his own soul. Perhaps he will resist it. Perhaps it will take time for him to understand. But sooner or later, the call of the soul speaks louder than pride and fear. And if he returns, and many do, you will know exactly what to do. Because by then you will have become someone who no longer needs anyone, but who consciously chooses who is worthy to stand beside her. And that, Jung tells us, is the highest sign of emotional maturity in a human being. If these words resonate within you, take a deep breath, look inward with quiet curiosity, and ask yourself, how many times have I abandoned myself simply to keep someone close, simply to avoid being left behind? Now imagine clearly, vividly what your life would look like if you never again had to beg for love, for attention, or for respect. That is the gift Jung offers us, the extraordinary courage to remain whole, even in a world that constantly pushes us into halves, into dependency, into fear. This is not merely a lesson, it is a journey home to the radiant essence of who you truly are.